Hi, welcome everyone to our fun and inviting evening chat. I am Amber Hyland, the publisher of the Cartomancer. Jaymi Elford is our associate editor, and we are so excited today to have our special guest, Dina Saalisi, and we'll be talking about her new book. The Art of Flower Therapy, in which she kind of goes into the origins of using flower essences for healing and support. And it's all about living your most vital life. So, Dina, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Tell
you
us a
for
little bit about yourself, please.
Wow, a little bit about myself. Well, I've been in the healing arts probably for centuries, you know. I kind of was born into this path.
Mhm.
I've had a few careers in my life, but it was about 10 years ago that I kind of took up being a professional healer. My official title is that of health coach. I have a certification, a board certification from the NBME as a health and wellness coach. But for me, my love was always in more of the subtle energy medicines. I'm like a self-studied homeopathist and flower therapist. So really, the energy of the flowers is what really gets me excited. Being physically with flowers, with wildflowers, like on trails, that's where I really feel the most alive and the most at peace. And so to me, that's like confirmation enough that the energy that's being emitted from these flowers, from nature, is real and is healing. And so there's this great system that Dr. Edward Bach started about 100 years ago in rural England. And he deemed 38 wildflowers to hold these qualities that relate to 38 different emotional challenges, let's say. And so in those 100 years, human emotion hasn't really changed. Right? We're having the same emotions.
Yep.
Our circumstances have changed, but I really find it to be such a compelling and a deep and a system that actually works. And so I've just had great results with it. And, I'm forever a student as well, because every time I teach or I meet with a podcast host and we talk about flower therapy, I feel like I learn more. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
So I guess that's about me.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for coming on and thank you for giving us a chance to ask you some of the probably more common questions that you probably get asked a lot on podcasts. At least those are going to be asked by me because I'm, as I mentioned as everybody probably knows by now, I'm new to a lot of some of these working with techniques and the healing modalities, especially with flower and herbal essences, because I'm allergic to a lot of the flowers and stuff. So I know that your book, what I liked about your book is that it is a kind of a novice/beginner's book that introduces not only a system, but it gives us kind of some of that background and biography from you on, and some stories about how you've, came to the flower essences, especially the Bach program, which I didn't know about until you made some connections for me in your book. You talk about the Bach rescue remedy, which a lot of us Pac Northwesterners who go to a lot of the I almost just said new agey markets, but it's kind of true where like we have New Seasons Market, Fred Meyer, which isn't a one of those holistic places, but they do sell Bach's rescue remedy. And I have used those in the past. But my first question is, can you kind of give us a little bit of intro on what is a flower essence and how does it kind of differ from infusions or oils? Like I love to put on my roly, smelly oils and stuff, but flower essences are something I haven't worked with yet.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So,
Yeah.
the name essence is a little misleading because we tend to think it has an aroma, a scent, right? And they do not. Like essential oils are the scent of the flower, right? And it's a
Mhm.
distillation process. And that's great. And then herbal remedies are like the physical properties of the plant, right? We do a decoction and we take all of those great physiological properties that can be used for various healing. But what's different about flower essence remedies is that they're pretty much the spiritual energy of the plant. So when we
Ah,
talk about subtle energy medicine, that's I feel like people have more awareness about that nowadays. But it's basically the most minute particle of the flower that so they take the flowers and they float them in water and then the sun catalyzes it. They can also be cooked over a stove, so either the heat of the sun or the fire from the sun or the fire from a flame, and that draws out the energy of the flower. And so then the water, and this is I feel like in the last few years science has really studied the effects of water and the way it holds the imprint of things, right? So it
yeah.
holds the imprint of the flower. And what this guy, Dr. Bach, did about 100 years ago is he sort of discovered what the imprint of each of these flowers was being used for. And so he did, he tried them out on himself. He tried them out on his patients. He was a successful medical doctor. So he was a smart guy, and he really wanted to work with the agents of nature in a way that would relate to the disharmony that we as humans experience, life on Earth,
Mhm.
and that flowers would bring us back into harmony. So that's what he discovered, that the subtle energy from the flowers could be used for. And so 100 years later, over 60 countries, there's thousands, tens of thousands of practitioners. There's hundreds of companies now that make flower essences from just about every flower, and they're used with amazing results. And so, I kind of feel like science hasn't caught up to us yet, right? I mean, we know a little bit about quantum energy and what it means and all, but it's still a little mysterious, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah.
kind of like what you're describing is a little bit like I had to Google it because I needed to remember the name. 2004's movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? Because I
Yeah.
believe that's the one that talked a little bit about scientific woo or woo and science, and they talked about like the water, how water can hold emotions
Yes.
and
Yes.
all those other techniques. So what I like about what you're describing is not just it's a holistic way. So it combines the magic of an item
Right.
and with the science of it, and the fact that the Bach method was started by a tried and true doctor of that time, but still a doctor, a practicing man of science, really does kind of bring out the idea that this stuff can work, just like divination works.
Sure, absolutely. And really before Bach, it was thousands of years before Bach. So I don't know if either of you have heard of Saint Hildegard of Bingen. She was that German
Absolutely.
mystic saint, right?
Maybe.
Okay. So she was a German mystic saint, and she was, locked away in a monastery, so she had a lot of time on her hands. She wrote all these books. Physica is her famous one about
Oh,
herbs, and
okay.
like we don't even realize, because this was 1100. Okay, so we
Mhm.
don't even realize that we're using some of her methods and her information. But she was the first known European person to collect the dew off of the blossoms and give them to sick people for healing. And then thousands of years before that, the indigenous people, right? So it's like, who are we to say, oh, this is new age, this is
Mhm.
woo, and for thousands and thousands of years, people, brown skinned people were using these methods. But
Yeah.
now we think, oh, that can't be right, or that's cute, that's folk medicine,
Well,
right?
what comes around goes around, right? We're coming back to all that, and in our conquest to make more room for meat or anything like down in the rainforest, I keep wondering what sorts of plants are we losing? What sorts of new techniques or critters and animals are, we losing? But that's,
Yeah.
an aside to all of this, I know, because what I for me, it is coming back. It is honoring a lot of that old knowledge and then bringing the science, the modern day science back into it,
Yeah.
using the newer techniques, distillations, the newer, we can figure out, more a control about what's allergenic to a person versus what isn't, and how to kind of control or use a different essence, if you will.
Yeah.
And I know that one of my big questions I had came from the introduction of your book when I read that, because I had to read it twice.
Mhm.
You say, as a holistic healer, I witness others who suffer with various physical and emotional challenges. Often they seek me out as a last-ditch effort to address issues that mainstream medicine hasn't been able to effectively support. I loved this because it's so true, and it's true of the divination community, where sometimes, whether it is relationship questions or health questions, we are that last line of resort of help me figure X out or start that.
Yeah.
The question I had that came from reading this was, what are some ways for us to be more proactive to seek the relief? If there's any ideas that you can give us to say, like, if me, Jaymi, wanted to come to you and yet not Western medicine, how would somebody, start just doing it? Would we just ask?
You mean
Or
start working with flower remedies?
yeah.
Yeah, well, the book. So,
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
that's why I wrote the book, honestly, is because, I teach people, like I would do Zoom classes and in-person classes, and actually teach students how to do this method. So I was like, wouldn't it be great to have like a little textbook? It's comprehensive, like start to finish. You
Yeah.
can definitely get on the road using the book. But I like what you said. I wanna kind of talk about the parallel between divination and, say, flower essences, because what I see is like, okay, so when someone comes to you for divination, right, they
Mhm.
want answers. They're suffering, right? That they want answers.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening with divination is that even though it seems like the answer is coming from the outside, it's really coming from a deeper place within ourselves, right? You agree with
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the same with the flower essences. It's not enough for me to just say, well, you're having fear, so use this flower that relates to fear. It really is about helping people to go deeper into understanding what it even is they're feeling, right?
Mhm.
And then being able to like self-heal and self-soothe and maybe figure out for themselves what flower feels most relevant rather than me telling them. So even like when I meet with a client for a flower essence session, which I do, we'll talk for about an hour, and I'll listen to all of their physical ailments, because oftentimes people are physically suffering, but it's not my place to tell them what to do on a physical level or to tell them what not to do. It's more about helping them to go deeper into their emotional landscape, right? And as soon as that happens, so many questions get answered, and it might take a while to unravel it, over the course of weeks or months or even years, right? I mean, it's really an ongoing process. We're never fully healed, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, right? So it's not about getting to a finish line. It's really about getting more self-aware, because from that self-awareness, then you're going to be able to manage any challenge with or without the flowers, with or without the divination, right? These are just methods that help us.
Mhm. I like that approach because, again, it's something like I stress to my clients or just others through, my own education or teaching, is that, we are our best advocate for ourselves, medically or emotionally. We need to find the helpers. And sometimes it's, like you said, digging deep and going beyond the pain and trying to figure out how that's making you feel, or going back to those painful situations that, like in your book, there are, I think there were like 5 or 6 Bach essences that can actually work with a lot of the traumatic background stuff. And I liked, so the book, the way that Dina made her book was that she has the introduction, she's got some background material, but the second chapter is really nicely laid out with what each category for each one of those are,
Yeah.
and then what each of the flower essences of the 38 go into, that with lovely, like almost cartomantic descriptions of the positives and negatives, what it does, how you've worked with somebody with it, and then these wonderful journaling prompts that, for me, I'm a nut for journaling, and in my own health and emotional mental health awareness practices, I can see how using some of those would actually benefit me.
Absolutely. What I love in you having the journal prompts in each section is that for those people that are out there that maybe have a little bit of a fear or reservation about really looking within, because that can be
Right.
scary and a little unnerving for
Mhm.
people. But if they have that connection with cartomancy, is that they can use those as
Mhm.
prompts, right? As in a way, like say a 3 card spread, like you have the one for fear, and there
Mhm.
could be 3 cards to help them look within to get to those answers. So the first card, what am I afraid of? Shuffle, pull a card just to help to get
Right.
into those layers, and a little bit maybe of a safer way, well, more secure way for some people
Mhm. Yeah.
to do that. To have that extra tool to get into deeper. Um, I love it. I love how you chose to do this. It's yes, it's that introductory book, but it's not condescending at all. So for people that do have more knowledge, it's so beautifully and compactly, concisely worded, and in such a practical way that it's a great reference for anybody, whatever level of knowledge you have in the use of flower essence therapy. Um, that I just think it's a great one for anyone's bookshelf in general. So thank you for the way for your approach in how you wrote the book. Um,
Yeah.
and something that I'm really curious about is how would because a lot of the people who are watching, whether they're live tonight or in replay, they are going to be cartomancers. They're going to be tarot people who are either reading for themselves or for other people.
Yeah.
Where would you suggest that they start to support themselves and then also to support their clients?
Right.
Um, yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I would start honestly if you're drawn to flower therapy, if you're a person who's drawn to nature and flower therapy, I would really start, I like that you both brought up the journaling questions because I'm like a journaling freak, and that's, I'm a writer, so I love journaling, and I always try to get clients to begin their process with journaling because I think you learn so much about yourself. And so I would maybe tell people to start with journaling. If they don't already have that practice, that's definitely a foundation.
Mhm.
So they can use the journal prompts in the book. And then the way I prescribe journaling is it's best to do it as close to waking up in the morning. I know not everybody has time in the morning, but that's when you're in this most liminal stage, right? Like where you're not in asleep, you're not in dream world, but you're not fully awake yet. And I journal every single day of my life, pretty much right when I wake up in the morning. And then the trick is to read back your entries, not right away. So what I do is I tell people to read them back on the new and full moon of each month.
Oh yeah.
So you're
Yeah,
going back 2 weeks each time, right?
yeah.
And I mean, like for myself, for clients, there are so many wisdoms and enlightenments that come up in that way. I mean, some of the stuff I write, I don't even remember having written it, right? Because it's so close to that liminal time. And you discover so much about yourself. So that can really help if people want to go deeper and find out, the emotions they're experiencing. And then if they'd like to offer themselves the flower essence remedies, go to the book. And yes, they're divided into 7 categories of emotional challenge. So there's 38 flowers divided into 7 categories. And these were Bach's categories. So like you said, the first category is fear, but there's 5 flowers for fear. So there's different ways we experience fear. So again, it's not enough to just be like, I'm afraid. You're not going to go deep enough. So this is really a brilliant system. Then the other thing is, I don't know if you all are aware that I also have an oracle deck of the
I was
flower.
gonna ask you about that, like, because you do mention it in the book, and then I was just gonna say, how do you recommend people use your listening to flowers oracle or in tandem or just alone?
Okay, so I developed the deck first. And actually, when I developed it, I didn't know it was going to be a deck until Schiffer Red Feather picked it up and wanted to make it a deck. I thought it was just going to be a book of affirmations with the pictures. So I had an artist, Audrey Violet, who's an amazing artist, drew each flower, hand drawn, and they're really quite beautiful.
Oh,
And
cool.
Oh, I like that.
so, yeah, they're amazing. So, when I was going through training with the Bach Center, I started writing 3-line affirmations for each of the flowers so that I could help myself to remember them better, like what they're for, the kind of the positive reflection, right? And then when I started seeing clients as a health coach, I would give them a flower essence remedy, and I would give them each affirmation for each flower. And people were just like, this is great, because not only do I understand what I'm taking, because you take them internally, the essences, they're like, it helps me to kind of ground into it and to know, one of the ways I love that affirmations work is not only is it affirming the positive, but sometimes the words are hard to say and we don't believe them. Sometimes I'm a person who remembers everything, and if I can't remember the 3 lines, I'm like, this is something I really need, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like the difficulty of it can also point us in the right direction. So you can use the cards. If you're using flower essence remedies, you can use like each affirmation alongside. That's how you can use the cards. And more recently, so I was asked to do flower oracle readings at an event recently, and it's something I hadn't used the cards for before. I was like, I'm game, whatever, I'll just draw a card for each person and see what happens, right? Well, first of all, I had a line that lasted for 2 hours. So I sat there for 2 hours, and I thought, some people stop by. Like I wasn't the main, part of the event. I was just kind of like a side person.
It's amazing when you break out the cards, people start. Yeah, it's like you're like tarot, and everybody's like, I want a reading immediately. So, especially when it's a complimentary thing.
Yeah. So I had 2 hours I did this for, and I spent like 5 minutes with each person. So I sat with quite a bunch of people, mostly women. And the thing was, every single person drew a card, and I read them the affirmation. I told them what the card was for, and they all were like, that's exactly spot on. I mean, I had women crying, and I'm just, and I'm not like, oh, I'm going to read your fortune. I'm a very practical person. But it's the energy, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
there's this energy, and somehow, as you know, through your divination practice, the cards know what needs to be heard, what needs to be spoken out loud.
Right.
And so, so all of that, just work with them however you see fit. But it works. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Love it.
Do you feel it that, do you get drawn to particular flowers, or an energy that will be kind of like reflective of what the collective needs during a certain time?
Yeah, absolutely. One that comes to mind, like during the pandemic, was the aspen flower. And aspen is one of the fear flowers. And so one of the ways that we kind of know what flowers, what they're for, is we kind of, as botanists, right, with the botanist hat on, we look at like the properties of the plant. So if anyone who's ever seen an aspen tree, it quivers, right? Like it shakes in the wind. And that's exactly what the aspen flower is used for. It's for fear with no known reason. So kind of that unknown, right? And we were going through that so hard during the pandemic.
Yeah.
We were afraid, and sure, like we were afraid of getting sick, but we really didn't know. There was this great uncertainty, this fear of the unknown sort of thing. And, so I used a lot of that with a lot of people, with myself. And what I noticed was my collective group this really helped us to feel more stabilized, less shaky on the inside, and more just, able to kind of deal with the challenges as they came up.
It's amazing. It's so simple. I never would have thought that that's how because there's so many books on this, corresponds to this. This rock means this.
Right.
And with rocks, I know it's a little different, but with trees, I never thought it would be as simple as watch what it does, or watch how animals, react to it, or, the observation part, at least the eyesight observation, or the listening aspect to it.
Yeah, for sure. And when I teach flower therapy, one of the practices that we do is we sketch a plant or a flower, because it gives you so much more insight. It really does. You're looking at it through a different lens, so you're learning about it.
Right. Yeah. My first introduction to flower essences, as well as homeopathics, was through using them on animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I use them for animals way before I use them on people.
Yeah.
And one thing that I have, come to realize through, healing arts is that, animals are objective, right? They don't have a preconceived notion of what it's supposed to
Exactly.
do,
Right.
but so you can really gauge the response and see the benefits
Yes.
reflected in them. So the strength and the power of them was so embedded in me at that point. Just seeing how a horse, a dog would respond,
Right.
just something, and using them for grief for an animal,
Mm.
right? And not just the human, but when an animal is grieving,
Right.
and helping them through that, and helping them through a rehab or rehabilitation or rehoming situation. So it's powerful and it's so encompassing. And it's something that ties us to that true, that essence of the earth, right? Our soul, that inner part of us, that connects us with everything.
Right.
Is there, we've got the solstice coming up very soon here, and then very quickly moving into a new calendar year.
Right.
Are you getting drawn to any specific flower essences now collectively, or is there something that you would say, okay, just in general, maybe be thinking of supporting yourself with these during this time?
Well, one that comes to mind that is sort of the season is holly, right? Holly. So holly is for these really difficult emotions of hatred, of anger, when we see ourselves separate from other people, separate from humanity. We have a lot of that going on right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I really see the holly flower as it's a heart-opening flower, and gosh, I wish we could just dose all of the world leaders with it. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, that'd
Stick
be
a
nice.
plane up into the sky and, with it and let it drop
Shower
into
it down on everybody.
Yeah.
And I think right in the book when I tell the holly story, I talk about like the story of Scrooge, right? And how like his heart was so closed, and just because it's like it's a Christmassy flower, and it just reminds me that it's like we can get in this place as human beings, and if we're not careful, where we close ourselves off to humanity, and then we build up a wall, and so like we think we're right in the hatred or the disassociation with others, but we really need humanity to thrive. Like we need one another. We need to open our hearts more. So for anyone who's feeling closed or just really not being able to tap into the greater love for humanity, I definitely think holly is a good one for now, for our time.
I love that. I like that so much. With pairing, do you read tarot cards at all?
I use them for myself. Yeah, I do. And I get that.
Because now I'm really curious to get my hands on your flower essence deck.
Hint, hint, Crystal. No, I mean,
no. So yes, Crystal, if you're listening,
we love you.
I'm very curious now to see, you say I'm doing a reading for Jaymi, and there is, like an overriding theme, and I'm seeing perhaps there is, some of like that closed heart going on. And then going through your deck and pulling a flower essence that would support, right? Because I'm all about people's readings being empowering and giving them homework and having people take ownership and accountability in their healing. So to do that and then pull one of the cards from your deck as a flower essence to support that for them and guide them in that direction.
Right.
I think that would be really interesting to do.
Yeah, and they can choose to take the essence internally or not. And so that's why I wrote the affirmations, because sometimes we can just shift our mindset just by using the words, right? And looking at the image. So it's all powerful. Would you all like me to draw a card for the collective now? Should we do that?
Yeah, please.
Right?
We enjoy pulling cards when we get the chance.
Yeah, because like you said, we're coming up on the solstice. So this is a really powerful, powerful time. It's going to be the solstice and then the full moon. So everything is coming into fruition. We're welcoming the return of the light, which is really, a joyful thing to behold. Yeah, so let's just pull a card for the collective and see what the message is that wants to be heard. Oh, gorse. This is
Ooh.
gorse.
Gorse.
Before I read the affirmation, I'll just tell you a little bit about it and see if it's relevant for anybody. Well, so gorse is about, I would say it's about a deep sense of, I shy away from the word depression because that's such a loaded word, but heaviness. Okay. So, well, first of all, when we look at the flower, it's yellow, right? So yellow denotes a lot of light filled energy where it can kind of pull us up out of the gloom. And the thing about a gorse state, if we're in a gorse state where we feel kind of heavy hearted or depressed, we feel somewhat hopeless. And that's true. I do hear that there's a lot of hopelessness going on right now. And,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of heaviness. So to be able to lean into the hope of gorse, hope is illuminated in my soul. My spirit is uplifted and restored. I dwell in the radiance of positivity. So just offering us a little bit of light during this season where the light is returning and maybe
Yeah.
some hope so that we have the strength, to kind of move forward and go on and do what's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that will ring true for many people. I feel that there's, a lot of people, especially maybe the last like 6 months, right? The last half of this year, I think have been very challenging for a lot of people and trying to finish out and get past this year and like, oh, what's 2024 going to bring? But it's going to bring hope.
Yeah.
And so that's that beautiful reminder. And the yellowness, right, for the solstice, right? It's the returning of the light, the returning of the sun. So how perfect.
I was just
Yeah,
going to catch
I'm kind of
that.
getting chills on
Well,
on
and then you
Gorse
have
being
the
a
yellow
card.
necklace on. Amber,
Oh,
you've
well,
got
yeah.
your yellow on. And yeah, I was going to mention that as well. The yellowness, that bright color that, we don't really, I mean, other than lights outside, we don't really see in wintertime unless it's, very sunny somewhere.
Right. And yellow is used in color therapy, right? Like to feel
Mhm.
the uplifting for sure.
Do you do a lot of color therapy along with the flower essence?
I don't do color therapy specifically. I think I'm just more aware of like what colors do
Mhm.
because I'm just really what I call myself is an energeticist. I
Okay.
just feel
Love
very
that.
attuned to energy. So color being an energy, sure, it does create
Mhm.
mood, right? Yeah.
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 Yeah. What do you suggest people just start off using one?
Mm.
Or do you suggest maybe they jump into it and use two or do a blend of two or three? And how would they step into that
Yeah,
process?
that's a really good question. Well, so you mentioned trauma before because the system is really great for unblocking trauma. And so if somebody is coming at it where they are feeling, like they have unresolved trauma, I would start with rescue remedy. And you could because that's the one combination formula that Dr. Bach made, and it's 5 flowers. And it addresses unresolved trauma. So anybody who's coming at it and really doesn't know where to start and is feeling kind of like maybe anxious and uncertain, I would definitely work with Rescue Remedy. And you could take that. The dosage would be 4 drops at least 4 times a day. And I would take it until you feel a shift. So that could be anywhere from a couple of days to a few weeks. And then from there, maybe looking in the book for like, working with the journaling prompts, just seeing what is emerging next. Like, are you feeling fear? Are you feeling anger? Are you feeling resentment? Like, what things are coming up for you? So remember, that's where the journaling comes in because it's being able to have this dialogue with yourself and name the feelings. And then from there, you can look toward the flowers. So I would start with rescue if you have trauma, if you're not sure. Otherwise, you could just flip through the book. And what I suggest doing is kind of like taking notes and jotting down any flowers that feel relevant in this moment. So that's an important point that I talk about in the book.
Yeah.
It's not enough to talk about, well, like 2 weeks ago, I had a fight with my partner and I was pissed, you know? Like, do
Yeah.
you feel pissed now? If you do, great. If that passed, then that's not relevant. It's what we're feeling now. And so jot down any of the flowers that feel relevant, and there might be quite a few, but then kind of go deeper. You want to just keep going deeper into teasing it out. And you want to, if you're going to make a combination formula, you want it to be anywhere from, I would say, 2 to 7 flowers. Why did Bach say 7 was the, the top amount? Nobody really knows for sure. But what I notice when I'm working with others or myself, that the more you're able to narrow it down, it's just the clearer you get. If you're just like, well, well, I could use this, and I need more intuition, I need this, then you're kind of diluting it too much, that maybe if some of them feel relevant, but not super relevant, put them on the back burner. But this is all self-discovery, and it should be enjoyable. It's not meant to be like, oh God, I don't know, so forget it. Just play with it and see what feels good. For people who really want to get into flower therapy, I do recommend buying a kit. And the Flower Essence Society in Northern California makes a Bach kit that's actually made in England, but it's their kit. And it's very affordable. They make like, a complete kit that anybody can access. And they have tons of information on their website as well. So you could do that, and you can start mixing flowers. But if, anybody who gets into it, it's really fun. It's like you do it for yourself, and then before you know it, you're prescribing for other people. Like, people want you to make them a flower, a bouquet. You're giving someone a bouquet.
Yeah, what a beautiful way to say that. Yeah, absolutely. Giving somebody a bouquet. And I think that, if you're going through Dina's book and looking to do that little bit deeper level and create something and choose what flowers you want to combine or which one might speak to you, I suggest reading the affirmations that Dina has, because that might be a little too much if you don't want to read as much as the description and everything going on with that flower essence, or maybe you just don't have the bandwidth for it at that time. Read the affirmations and see which of the affirmations resonate with you at that time, like you said, in that moment, and go from there. It's
just as we're
because right away you're going to either resonate with the one line or you're not. Exactly.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, just as we're talking about all this, especially with with pets, as I, kind of let this thing slip, I have 2 ragdolls, and they're pretty young. And I, not just thinking about using essences with them, but thinking that just saying the affirmations to them, or, like putting hand, on them and just saying it, and with that intent, might even be a way that if you're not sure about essences for pets, or oils or anything else, that's a good way to do it too, is use those affirmations, with everybody.
The energetic of it all.
Exactly. Yeah. We're changing energy. We're able to do that. So
transmutation. It's what witches do.
Well, I think, you made such a good point, that it comes with a mindset, and from a mindset, and that willingness to not just accept the healing, but to be open to it, to be open to the receiving. And I think, I forget the exact quote, but you used the Bach quote towards the beginning of the book, where he talks about the importance aspect of a healing is to have that mindset that this is what you want to do. And it doesn't, this goes for any type of healing, or when you're trying to branch off, or, better yourself, improve yourself, is that, be gentle with yourself, be forgiving, just because you're doing something and, man, this rescue remedy is not working, I'll be doing it for 7 days. Or maybe like you decide you want to give yourself a 7-day program of something, and you forget to take it for a day. You know what? Cut yourself some slack.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the most important thing is that you're showing up for yourself, right? And you're not going to be perfect. Who wants to be perfect? I don't want to be perfect.
Not me anymore.
Standards.
I mean, younger, yes, but as we age, we learn that perfection isn't really all that's cracked up to be. It's
all about fun,
No.
and we should be having more fun. And so that goes to your point, Amber, about being easier on yourself. Like if you make a mistake, try to laugh at it. Don't beat yourself up, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I want to mention too, because it's something that I know Jaymi has an appreciation of as well as I do, is I appreciate the bibliography that you have.
Oh God, yeah.
They're fantastic references, and it's all because sometimes it's always that always learning, always improving ourselves, always going for more knowledge, and there might be something that you have suggested in your book that you're like, oh, wait a minute, I want to know more about that specific thing. And I mean, like, I love Patricia Kaminski's book, and I know you mentioned that one.
She's great.
Yeah. And then, of course, Bach's Essential Writings book. But then I also really like that you talked about Hildegard. And I think that that's something else that people, because of the history of it, and how much her work, people will see that those trails of her work, those vibrations from what she laid out, have done so much for so many of these healing arts and the subtle energy work that so many of us do are involved with. So I appreciate that that's makes up who you are, Dina.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll often go to the bibliography before I even start a book and just see what resources they have, and then start adding to the wish list, because I know I'm probably going to want to go deeper at some point. So yeah, all the resources, all the things. I know that, like, as we've been talking, there are 38 base Bach flowers. In your personal or private practice, have you started integrating more flower essences?
Yeah, I do work with the Flower Essence Society, Patricia Kaminski and Richard Katz. They're in Northern California. I've been to their land twice, and it's truly amazing. And they've been doing it since '79, so they're like the second longest, running. And they have over 100, I mean, probably close to 200 flowers that they use. But I completely trust them because their flowers go into research for years before they release an essence. And I work with maybe even more of theirs than I work with the Bach. Like, just I know more of theirs, like maybe 50 of theirs that I'm super familiar with. But whenever I meet with a client or students for the first time, I always direct them to the Bach essences first, just because that's the original method. And I feel like if they can get really grounded in that first, I don't want to confuse them with like, here's 200 flowers, now figure, that's just too confusing. And then I feel like they won't want to do it. So like, get really good at working with the Bach 38 and then expand out from there. And that's kind of how I work with myself and I work with others. But yeah, the fest flowers are amazing. I also work with some gem essences. So Alaskan essences in Alaska.
Yeah.
Amazing, right? And again, gems, the energy of gemstones.
Right.
And to be able to take them internally is like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Could you give us an example of how you would, integrate both, or how you, do it in your personal practice?
Yeah, well, for myself, I create a combination flower remedy for myself once a month. And I just sit and I get really quiet and I just jot down everything. And I'm so used to doing this for so long now that it comes pretty quick. It comes pretty easily. But I'll write down all the flowers, and some of them happen to be fest flowers. And then I'll also add in like a gem or two. I'm like, for instance, I'll throw out a fest remedy that I love is the cosmos flower, cosmos. And that helps me with my creativity. So cosmos is for being able to express yourself, your creative energy really well. And it's a little different from what I would say the Bach flower for helping you express your creative energy is larch. And larch is for more like lack of self-confidence, like when I'm afraid made to display it. And then whereas I feel like Cosmos is more about enlivening my creativity, so it is a little bit different. And so I might even combine both of those, if I was feeling a little dry or whatever. And then like a gem essence is like rose quartz. Like we all know what rose quartz is like for heart opening and for self-love and all that. And I might throw some of that in if I was feeling like I needed a little embrace. So you can certainly mix and match them. Although I have to say the Bach Center would not say that that's kosher. They're very strict, and it should be. It's the original formula, and they're very strict with their standards. And me as a Bach practitioner, I'm not really supposed to, direct people in that regard, but people can do whatever they want, and the information's there. So that's kind of how I practice.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because it's always fun to know what people are into, but see how they use it, and like you said, the practical of it all.
What remedy have you used that the response has surprised you the most?
Surprised me the most? Well, I think I don't know if I'm surprised by this, but I'm very moved, is the pine remedy.
Mm-hmm.
So pine is for shame and blame. Shame and blame. So blame, self-blame. So it's one of the ones that I really discovered early on was going to really help a lot of trauma, like sexual abuse survivors specifically, which I am one. And it really is the one where we, like you said, beat ourselves up, run ourselves down in our heads, right? And so I guess when I first started working with people and people started coming to me to address trauma, not because I put myself out there as a trauma coach, but more because I was able to hold the space, and just through word of mouth, that kind of spread. And I was a little surprised with how insidious physical, emotional abuse is, like how it wears on us. And I think probably every single woman I've ever met with has this dis-ease of self-blame and shame. And so just being born into, a female body, we carry that. It's the collective, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, pine. So I love the way pine imbues this sense of self-love, self-acceptance, self-esteem. And the pine tree, it's kind of an odd flower. It's really weird. It's not very pretty. It doesn't bloom for very long. It's kind of that like weird penis looking thing, honestly. But it's yeah, and the pollen is like terrible, like it's really allergenic. But that's the other thing, is that the flower essence remedies, there's no allergies to them.
Which is awesome.
Which is awesome, right? But so yeah, I could cry, at the foot of the pine tree for feeling really gratitude that this tree flower that I really didn't know anything about really could help to assuage this guilt and this shame. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular about the book and the work that you do that you'd really like to share with people?
Well, I love meeting with people in person. I did my Zoom time, even before COVID. I used to meet with clients like all over the country, really, through Zoom, which was really fantastic. But I'm finding so much richness recently. Like I started back this past April, I started doing new and full moon circles in person again. And I'm just loving the being able to be in the energetic sphere of other humans. That feels really powerful. And so circles, right? That's something I can say that I really enjoy, and that I really think, and this is a book that's in editing now, that's going to be released next year, called Divine Flowers, is more about practices. And there's remedies are in it, but it's more about practices and how to really develop ourselves to the utmost. And circles are something that I love. And I think that everybody should be part of a circle. And if they're not part of one, they should start one. because there's power in it. There's so much power in the collective. So I
Yes.
want people to know that. And then I also want to share that I'm launching a podcast on January 11th.
Hey,
Oh, congratulations. Awesome.
I'm so excited. It's called Your Healing Garden, and it's cultivating well-being with the energies of nature. And again, I wanted to be with people in person. So I decided to go on location in people's gardens or nature sanctuary and talk to them about how they work with the healing energies of nature.
I love that.
It's a lot because I
Yeah.
That
know.
is cool.
I'm loving it. So I'm loving the energetic communication of being with people in person. Yeah.
That sounds fun. It gets you out of your house, exploring the, I don't know, United States or local areas, and
Yeah.
and meeting new people and building circles within circles.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm excited for your new book. That just
No
sounds great.
kidding. Yeah.
I am too. I can't wait. It's going to be good. And you know what? It's going to be released as an audiobook, which I'm going to read. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
It
Oh,
has all
nice.
guided practices. And I was like, they need to be read out loud.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Well, I also especially love it when the authors get a chance to read their own book,
Yes.
because then you really get to hear it how it's, it's meant.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you're working on that you can tease us with for either next year or in the future?
I am working on so much, but I really am. But you know what? There was an idea that I had quite a while ago that I was waiting to connect with an artist on, that I recently did connect with a new artist on, and it's going to be another Oracle deck, and it doesn't have a home yet. It's kind of like a seedling idea, but it's going to be about it. So the title, or the working title anyway, is called Stick is My Power, and it's about the wisdom of wood and how not only trees, like it illuminates the power of 20 trees, but then it also illuminates the power of 20 wooden tools that we've used throughout time as human beings. And so it's pretty powerful. And so I introduced this idea to an artist who I'm excited about working with, and she's going to do the drawings. So that's still a seedling, but that's going to come to fruition. And I'm hoping actually that I can go and like sit with each of these trees and get the information. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's already conjuring ways that I want to use this,
I know, my brain's already, ooh.
I know. That's what we do. Amber and I are like idea generators. Like, we get together, we play with the decks, and we're like, bah, and just go off in all directions. So thank you for teasing us with a couple of more cool things that are coming out next year as well as in the future. And I hope the little seedling grows into a nice, strong wand or tree.
It will. Yeah.
Well, I know we've been putting up some links so people can find you that way. I know that you are active on Instagram. And do you think is that the best way for people to follow what you're doing and reach out to you?
Yeah, Instagram or my website. People can message me either place, but those are my two main venues for sure. And then the podcast will air on mindbodyspirit.fm. So that's a network, and they can follow the podcast there or wherever they get their podcasts from. But yeah, I would say Instagram or my website. Yeah.
Great. I made a note, so I remember to look for the podcast. I can't wait.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you again so much for joining us this evening. And thank you everybody for watching us. And we will see you again soon. Please do go ahead, pick up Dina's book and enjoy it. Expand yourself, support yourself, and remember to love everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy
Take care, everybody. Good night.